Hey everybody, this is Perch. Well, one of the news items coming out of New York City Comic Con is that DC is going to basically bring back Vertigo, and I think it's for me it's like if you've lived long enough, you've seen DC bring back Vertigo at least four times at this point. I don't think it's that many times, but we've had relaunches of Vertigo. I believe this is safely the third time. It might be the fourth time, and the relaunch of it or the return of Vertigo always kind of comes with if you listen closely to the announcement, you wonder, it's kind of a self-owned to some extent. It's always, DC Comics has always delighted and impressed people with the groundbreaking, earth-shattering, Vertigo imprint that told daring stories that few have ever told before. And creators like Neil Gaiman came and did stuff for Vertigo, and we were very proud of it. So now we're going to relaunch it. And you're like, okay, but if it was groundbreaking and amazing and incredible and the best stories ever told and all that kind of stuff, why did you stop doing it? Like why did it go away? To me, that's always these Vertigo announcements always have that same tone of, all right, cool, you're bringing it back, and it left. Why? It was amazing, and it was the best entertainment you had, and it was the place for mature, powerful storytelling, and you canceled it for why? Like because it's not like it was gone for like 50 years and then returned, or it's like it's gone for like 2 years, 2.5 years. It's like, let's bring it back. And and also these announcements often go back to the well of the original, creators like Neil Gaiman and Grant Morrison and Peter Milligan, and you get, and it's like, yeah, and also Zoe Quinn. I mean, I don't know. Um, I have some. It's kind of like they're bringing it back. It's like it wasn't gone long enough for like I think the Saga hiatus was longer than the Vertigo hiatus. So is it really gone? I don't know. Anyway, we'll get to this mail. Asking a question. It says, Perch, a few years ago, I asked you a question about Vertigo Comics and why DC didn't better utilize the series they developed under that imprint. You were kind enough to answer. Link to a video. It says, yesterday at New York City Comic Con, DC announced Vertigo would return. I'm happy to hear this. Vertigo and Image are what kept me reading comics after I felt like I'd outgrown superhero books in my early teens. In my 30s, I became a superhero fan again. Funny how that happens. So no offense intended to older superhero fans. This is a common, pardon me, I'm good. Can't stop coughing. I don't know what's happening. What's happening to this channel? Anyway, this is common where people, they grow up and they find themselves returning to superheroes. And I don't know if it's a nostalgia thing, which is very, very likely, or if it's just, different storytelling, different writing, but it does happen. It's fairly common. Anyway, back to mail. It says, Black Label for me was never a true replacement for Vertigo. Nobody can tell me exactly what the hell Black Label was supposed to be. You have, Scott Snyder's Is It Canon or Not Batman story, and then you have Nice House by the Lake, and then let's do Wonder Woman Historia under there, and let's print them in weird formats some of the time, but not other time. We're going to put Sean Gordon Murphy's White Knight in there. Like, what are we doing? Like, is there any plan to any of this at this point? Anyway, says, I enjoyed Nice House by a Lake, but almost everything else they put out was Batman related. There were no new series like Preacher, 100 Bullets, or Why the Last Man. My question is this: what does Vertigo need to succeed out the gate? What should their 5-year plan be? There's a lot of goodwill at the announcement of their return. I'd hate for that to be squandered. Lastly, what are the worst mistakes they can make right away they need to absolutely avoid? Would love to hear your thoughts. Succeeding right out of the gates is that's a tough one. And I wouldn't shoot for a success right out the gate. I would shoot for, in 1 year's time, you feel like you've built up a handful of titles that are, solid, good reads. Why the Last Man wasn't successful right out the gate. Neither was 100 Bullets, some of these other books. So for that matter, neither was Sandman. There's a lot of kind of memory retconning of Sandman and what Neil Gaiman did and everything else. There's a lot of incorrect memories of that series. But that series was not, it came out and it was selling 100,000 copies or anywhere close to it. It took a while to gain steam, and it never gained steam in the original floppies like what it would become. So anyway, it just for what it's worth. So that in a nutshell, what it needs to focus on is good quality storytelling and art. Bring something very different. It needs to feel not like something that could exist in the proper DC universe. It needs to feel very new, very different, both in writing and art style. And that's it. It needs to also, and I know this sounds intuitive, obvious. It needs to be good. The series, the Vertigo series that's there needs to feel meaningful and powerful, and the stories need to not be. I mean, Nice House by a Lake by Tinian is good. I don't think it's the most amazing series in the world. It's been fun, but if you're putting it up against kind of original, Sandman, Invisible, Doom Patrol, some of these other books from Vertigo's past, Shade, I don't know that it's in that top 5, but it's a good series. Now get 4 more of those. I think it needs to avoid anything remotely topical. I think that this is where Vertigo needs to not have the "Hey, fellow kids" things. So don't do like a series of like, what if Donald Trump was president and decided to overthrow the government? Like that's let that be an indie book somewhere. That's not a Vertigo book. You do something kind of fantastical, something different, something that's creative in terms of the story. Don't try and like don't do Border Town. Like what if there was illegal immigration and aliens? It's like no thanks. That's what Vertigo needs to do. Tell something that's timeless. If I was the editor, I'd say, all right, if we were this pitch you did, if this book came out and then somebody picked it up 15 years later, would it still have meaning? Would it still matter? Okay, Sandman, 15, 20 years later, still felt relevant. Same thing with Preacher. Still, and Preacher is maybe a great example because Preacher is something that, forget CBR. CBR did one thing, like, it aged poorly. The woman was too helpless. It's like, okay, you don't know what aged poorly means. But Preacher is a book that very easily could have felt incredibly dated with, which is just bad references with, kind of storylines that were just, groan-inducing, cringy. But it didn't. Preacher was a wonderful series. Had a timeless quality. You could read it in the 90s. You could read it in 2024, and still a cool book. So that is what ultimately Vertigo needs to do. It needs to, every series that comes out needs to have a timeless quality. Needs to tell a story that would hold up, 10 years from now, more. It needs to have, strong writers, strong artists on it. So it looks, I think the look and feel should look and feel different. Meaning if you're somebody who is doing kind of a backup anthology story in DC Pride as an artist, maybe you're not the right artist for a Vertigo book, and the Pride has nothing to do with it. That's one of the common anthologies. The DC Winter Wonderland anthology series, and it shouldn't look like kind of standard superhero art. Now, there's exceptions to this, and Steve Dillon, obviously with Preacher, and there's been other artists, Chris Bacalo, who came in for Shade, but Chris's art was unique, and so was Dillon's art. I mean, they were different types of creators. Yes, have wonderful runs on kind of superhero books, but is different. So anyway, that's what I would do. Will it be successful? I don't think so. I think this is DC just kind of mining this territory kind of one more time. And I think they're going to keep doing this every couple of years. Again, if your hiatus from Vertigo was shorter than the hiatus of Saga, I don't know that you could call it a triumphant bringing back the brand. I think it's
there's lots of people in comic shops who did not notice it was gone. I'll put it that way. Anyway, what about you? Are you going to be reading the Vertigo titles? What would all of you like to see when it comes to Vertigo? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and thanks for listening.